Hello, all those awakening wonders out there. I want to welcome you to Quantum Healers Radio, where we explore all kinds of metaphysical wonders of the universe and how it can help you and apply to you and help your friends and family too. So, with that said, my first video here today is going to be on how to use the pendulum and what is that. So, when I first got started doing remote energy healing during the pandemic, I noticed that when I was being trained under Dr. Bradley Nelson, that he was using kinesiology. Well, I am not very good at that. And I was like, oh, I've got to have something that makes it a little easier. He suggested that I use a pendulum, which I did. And actually, it had been introduced to me before from a friend who used a pendulum, but I never really got into it because I really thought, what's really going on here? Because when we are so invested into an emotional outcome, we ask the pendulum, oh, is this going to happen or is this going to happen? And we find out it gives us all kinds of answers. Well, there's a reason why it's doing that. And you have to sort of delve into why is this happening? And it comes from the subconscious mind. Understand how a pendulum works. So the pendulum isn't magic. It's not. It's definitely not magic. I'm not tuned in to some dark forces. It's going to take me into the bowels of you know where. And in fact, when I do work, I always ask God to surround me with love, light, and protection. The next thing I ask for is ask God to protect the pendulum, protect me fully and completely. The next thing I ask is God, block all energies from moving the pendulum, block my energy from moving the pendulum, block my ego from moving the pendulum, block my biases from moving the pendulum, and only God's energy moves the pendulum. So I've set it up with the power of intention. Now, what is being heard is my subconscious mind. My subconscious mind, through micro movements in my body, is moving the pendulum, all coming through the subconscious mind. If you all are aware of Dolores Cannon and her great works, that will tell you a lot about the subconscious mind and how the subconscious mind is kind of going out. So she talks about the conscious mind is not within our bodies. We are actually conduits for consciousness. And I think now we're finding that in our quantum physics. They're now revealing to us how that potentiality can actually work. But Dolores Cannon was a trailblazer and she worked in hypnosis. I'm trained as a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, and I've worked extensively working with the subconscious mind. And because of that, I've learned how to speak to the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is a bit like talking to a computer. Imagine if you're trying to Google something and you want to know more about dogs. And you go into Google and you go into the search engine and you type FOX. Well, it's kind of like a dog. It's fur and runs around on four legs and what have you. You have a fox. You're not getting the different breeds of dogs. So you have to be mindful of the questions that you ask. So the first thing you're going to need to do is center yourself, take in some deep breaths, tune into your higher self, tune into your higher belief system. I know many of you are Muslim, many of you are Buddhist, Christians, even Christians are doing this because they're understanding that you can tap into the Christ consciousness, which is exciting. And we can all work in the best and highest good for all. the next part we need to do is once we're tuned in and we are asking for our higher self and God's source energy to protect us from all negative energies and to block all energies from moving the pendulum, block your energy from moving the pendulum, block your ego from moving the pendulum, and block your biases from moving the pendulum, and only allow God's energy, God's source energy, to move the pendulum. Now you can begin to take the next step. The next step is where it gets really tricky, though. You have to pay attention to what you are saying. So I have learned through the process of doing this over several years that when I was training a client of mine and we were going through the list of questions to do some remote energy healing on one of her people, we asked the same question exactly the same way, but she put in now. And so we got two different answers. So it was very interesting. So something as simple as a comma can change a meaning of a sentence. So you have to be mindful if something as simple as a comma can change the meaning of a sentence, then you have to be prepared for how you ask a question. So with that said, when you pick up your pendulum, you relax. You allow it to flow. Now, if you are new to this, or if you have a new pendulum, it actually might shake and vibrate a while. Just put the pendulum on you and allow the frequencies to sync up. It may take a few days. Don't rush it. You will eventually tune in and it will adopt your frequencies. Everything, you are a frequency. And we can go into more of that later, but for now we're working on pendulums. Your pendulum is an extension of you. It's picking up the electromagnetic field. It is picking up your frequency. And through the power of intention, you're guiding it. You're blocking certain energies from affecting it, and you'll get a pure answer by doing the setup the way we just described it. So now you can begin to ask the questions. All right, let's just focus on me. Because I do remote energy healing, some of the questions I would ask, and I'll just start with the one, and then we'll go from there. The first question I ask when I do remote energy clearing or healing for people is your personality wholeness healed? I'm getting yes, my personality wholeness is healed. So what that is that you have, according to the Dolores Cannon, and many others who are in this field of healing will tell you, you have an oversoul. Julia Cannon wrote a great book called Soul Speaks. I recommend everybody who has not heard of that book, look it up, buy it. It's a great read. It's a very short read, but it also gives you an idea how to talk to the subconscious mind. And that's going to be important when you're tuning in to your pendulum, because you want to get the language correct and ask the right questions. Because if you don't, you're not going to get the right answer for you. So the oversoul will express itself out into, when I'm born, it expresses part of itself out as Sally. And imagine a hand, and the oversoul is up here. And then my thumb is expressed out as Sally, and Sally goes around me, bumping around in this 3D world of ours. And I make plenty of mistakes out there and regret many things I've done and said. And as I go through, if I get really out of alignment, I may become completely disconnected. And that becomes, the thumb separates itself out completely from the oversoul. The oversoul is going to protect itself. It's not going to let all this noise that Sally's engaged in corrupt it. Now, when I croak, the oversoul will say, okay, so now she's ready to come back in and be reabsorbed back in. So now the thumb reattaches itself. So if you imagine if I injured my hand and my thumb became gangrene, the doctor's going to cut off my thumb in order to protect the bigger self. But once I croak, the oversoul will absorb me in, and it'll take me through a healing process. It's interesting because we've learned about this during Dolores Cannon's deep theta sessions that she calls quantum healing hypnosis. And we've learned from many people over, she's been doing it for 50 years. She's passed away now, but she created quite the movement. Many people who don't know each other, who have this quantum healing hypnosis technique done, and they're saying the same thing, and they have no knowledge of the other person who's saying the same thing. So there is something there. We also know this from people who've done near-death studies. So the Near-Death Studies Institute records many people who have had the past life or the near-death experiences, and they're coming back saying the same thing. So when you have thousands of people coming back from either being in the deep theta state or a near-death experience, telling us the same thing, I tend to listen because there's something to it. And thankfully, we know more about quantum physics now, and that's beginning to bring us out of the woo-woo and into more of the scientific field. I recommend also looking into Greg Braden, and he's spelled Gregg, Braden, and Dr. Bruce Lipton. They've done some amazing work in the field. They talk about the Heart Math Institute. They talk about how the subconscious mind can affect the DNA. So once you start going down this rabbit hole and you understand that the subconscious mind actually does have its own language, the pendulum gets a lot easier to use. And I do help people learn how to use the pendulum, but it's not hard. It's just about tuning in, being aware of your thoughts, making sure that your intention is correct, making sure that you're tuned into the higher self, to the God source energy, because you don't want to play around with low vibrational frequencies that will take you off track and into a negative world. Some people call those dark entities. I call them fleas, just because you can shoo them away and make them go away. They don't have to be attached to you at all. It is you are in control of not only your vessel, but in your quantum field around you. So just set the proper intention. Make sure that you're grounded and you're tied in to the higher realms and working in the best and highest good for all. Now, when I do tune in, the first thing I do ask once I feel like I'm tuned in and my pendulum's on the swing, you'll need to see, show me yes and show me no, because everybody is going to have a different yes and a different no. The next question is, show me more information. It's going to show you those three answers for you. Now, as you yourself go through your healing journey and your frequencies change from lower to higher, you're going to have to check to make sure that your pendulum is swinging in the same direction for yes and no. I've noticed as our frequency in our bodies and in our field, it will change. And as our frequencies change, the answer yes, no, and show me more information can also change. So if you feel like you're starting to get some wrong answers, first thing you do is ask this question first. The person, the energy you're tuned into, do you work for the best and highest good for all? When I first started doing this, I many times got the answer no. Well, that was because there was another frequency entity that was surrounding me that was throwing me off. So I blocked it. And then I said, only God's energy moves the pendulum. And I restated it. And then I said, God, do you work in everyone's best and highest good? Some people might think it's pretentious to ask God, do you work in the best and highest good? But we are working in an unseen world. And it's important for you to make sure you ask that question, because cosmic law is the negative entity that may be hovering around you for some hee-hees and jollies may be misguiding you. But they do have to tell you if they work in the best and highest good for all. It might say, yeah, I'm God. Sure. Do you work in the best and highest good for all? No. So check that. So do you work in the best and highest good for all? Yes. And then the next question is, show me yes, show me no, and show me more information. And it will swing differently, obviously, for each. And of course, once you get yourself set and you begin to, if you're somebody like me who works with my pendulum daily, you'll just automatically tune in and you'll go, it's almost like a preset. But it's always, always, always important to make sure that you're tuned into God's source energy and ask, do you work in the best and highest good for all? And then if not, block it, make it go away, and reset the intention. Block all energies from moving the pendulum. Only God's energy moves the pendulum. And then, God, do you work in the best and highest good for all? And once you get a yes, then you can start asking your questions. But at first, you might want to write down your questions, because you want to be able to ask it as if you were putting it into a Google, Bing, whatever search engine, because how you ask it will give you the answer. And remember, if you are not aware of how you ask a question, if you're just sort of asking some random question, I think of how a comma can change the meaning of a question or an answer. So you're going to have to get very mindful of how you ask it. And then only then will you begin to get more correct answers. Now, as you become in tune with it, it will swing wider. And if it's not swinging hardly at all, you can command it to swing wider and swing wider. We command, I always say we command, because I'm using God's source energy, and it is coming through God's authority that I create the swing. And again, I personally work only in the light of God's energy, and I block all negative energies. I will not work there. And if you are somebody who is looking to manipulate or control others, this will backfire on you every time. So make sure that your intentions are pure and good, and that you're coming from a place of love and not of self-service. If you're coming from a space of self-service, you're going to be all over the place, because you're easily manipulated by other things. So remember, it's important where you are in your mind and heart if you want accurate information. So with that said, if you have any questions, please leave a comment below. Reach out to me at sallyknopp@gmail.com. You can also just leave a comment here. I will see it and try to answer any questions that you have. I will have some upcoming videos as well on self-healing, what you can do to give you some tips. And then also, if you're looking to clear some trapped emotional energies and you're not sure how to do that, you can reach out to me on sallyknopp.com, SALLYKNOPP, P as in Paul.com. You can go through my informational page there. And if you still have questions, or if you want some healing, you can reach out to me through the link. Have a great day and enjoy your exploration and keep it good. Ciao for now.